Raise your hand if you've ever spent a day binging self-help content here on YouTube and found yourself feeling worse at the end of your binge sesh than you did at the beginning of it. Yeah, that's because a lot of self-help content here on the wild, wild west that is the internet is bad. It's really bad. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 4 common self-help quotes, pieces of advice, tropes that I wholeheartedly disagree with. So, who am I, you ask? Why should you care about my opinion? I mean, listen, I'm just some guy. You don't have to care about my opinion, but my name is Laura, and here on my channel, I talk all things health, wealth, and happiness here in the attention economy. I am a graduate student earning my master's in counseling, and I've also been on a very, very long mental health, spiritual, self love healing journey of my own for the last decade. I'm here to share things that I'm learning both in school and wisdom that I've picked up throughout my life to hopefully help you have a more pleasant journey in this realm so that we can create a healthier, more fun planet for everybody. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The first piece of self help advice that I hate is do it scared, or do it before you're ready, or you'll never be ready. Yes, but mostly no, is how I feel about this. I think it's really important to find the distinction between readiness and preparation. I do think that you will never be fully prepared for something before you start it, right? Like if you are a business owner or an aspiring influencer or an artist, you don't start that journey with all of the tools that you need. If you're an actor, you don't wait until you already have an agent before you start acting, but you can feel ready to start the journey before you start it. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who's kind of getting confused about that when I first heard about it. But I think it's really important to know the difference between feeling ready and being prepared. You absolutely can feel ready to do something before you start it. In fact, I think it's a good idea to wait until you feel ready to start something before you start it. Because if you don't feel ready to go through the ups and downs, to face the uncertainty, to face the fear that's going to come up when you are starting a new journey, whether it's a business journey, creative journey, whatever, you're basically pressuring yourself into doing this thing that you're telling yourself that you want to do, but like your body is resisting. And pressuring yourself into doing stuff, in my experience anyway, generally backfires. You may feel some fear. In fact, I would expect to feel fear on any journey in this life that's worth going on. But true readiness, true emotional readiness, includes the willingness and readiness to experience that fear. Let me give like an example. I think a really easy way to understand this is roller coasters. You know that it's going to be scary because it's literally supposed to be scary. That is the whole point of roller coasters. They are supposed to be scary. That is the entire fun of the experience, is being scared. But the difference in terms of whether or not you're going to have fun in that fear is whether or not you are ready to experience that fear. If you don't feel ready, you're not going to have fun on the roller coaster whether or not somebody pressures you into going. But you're going to have even less fun if people around you are pressuring you to go on the roller coaster and you go on the roller coaster even though you really don't want to. The same thing is true for you and how you relate to yourself around the goals that you're pursuing or the goals that you want to pursue, but you don't feel ready to start yet. It is okay to not be ready yet. Life is long, right? Life is short, but it's also painfully long. You have time. This is why I don't like that, do it scared, do it before you're ready, you'll never be ready. I sort of disagree with a lot of that. But I don't want to leave you without an alternative. So here's what I propose as a better choice is it's okay to take my time. For me, that phrase has had a profound effect on my personal healing journey because I was a gifted kid growing up, which means that my parents and family and teachers expected me to be early on my developmental milestones, which meant that they pressured me to do things before I felt ready to do them. And it created this like sort of normalization in my life and how I related to these like milestones and goals that I was supposed to be achieving, that like the only way to do it is to pressure myself into doing it. But it was a profoundly healing experience to my inner child to turn this 180 and start saying, you know what, it's fine to take your time. If you're not ready to do this yet, then let's not do it. Like, I know that you want to do it, but we'll go on your timeline. Like, who cares if it's going to take another year before you're ready to start a business? Who cares if it's going to take another 5 years before you're ready to go to grad school? Who cares? What is the rush? I mean, I can make a whole nother video about like hustle culture and capitalism and how like puts us all into this constant state of urgency and emergency. Fight back against that in your brain. When you feel that coming up, question it. Is that true? Is it really true that you're behind? Is it really true that you should be a millionaire by the time you're 20? Is it really true? According to whom? Who said that? Who planted that idea in your brain? If, on the other hand, it is important to you to move quickly through your life, I get that. Listen, I mean, these are my personal values. And if one of your personal values is speed, more power to you. I'm going to offer this: slow is smooth, smooth is fast. This goes back to the whole pressuring yourself thing. In my experience, at least, the more I feel pressured to do something before I'm ready, the more I dig my heels in and the slower things go. Or maybe like I'll do it, but then I kind of recoil, snap back, and all of that progress that I thought I made so quickly backslides. There's this saying, I think it's attributed to Abe Lincoln, that's like, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 sharpening my axe, getting ready, getting prepared, planning, getting my ducks in a row, okay? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Number 2 is good vibes only. Just like with the last point, I feel like I have some yes to it. I agree with it somewhat, but for the most part, like I really disagree with how it's been implemented and weaponized in our culture. I do agree that we as individuals have so much more control over our like internal subjective experience in life than we think we do. And I also think that a lot of that has to do with how and where we direct our attention. I have another video cooking in the background about the attention economy and how like we would all be better off if we start treating our attention as currency, relating to our attention as currency, and understand how much power we have with our attention, not just internally in our own subjective experience, but out in the world. This is why things like meditation and practicing gratitude are incredibly effective at bringing you out of like negative states and helping you recover from depression and things like that. Meditating and practicing gratitude are like really incredibly powerful tools. They won't solve everything, but they are incredibly powerful foundations for improving your life significantly. And that does support the notion of good vibes only, except it's not because once you really get into meditation, you learn that the purpose of meditation is to like notice and not judge your thoughts and feelings. There's an inherent judgment in the phrase good vibes only. You are judging whether or not the vibes are good or bad. We shouldn't be demonizing our uncomfortable and painful emotions just because they're uncomfortable and painful. It's toxic positivity. It leads to victim blaming. And it's actually very bad vibes to reject others on the basis of their pain. A better option that I would like to offer you is that emotions are simply information, morally neutral information. I'm going to use another analogy here. This time we're going to pretend that we've broken our arm, okay? You've broken your arm. It's very painful. That pain that you're feeling motivates you to go to the doctor and get it put in a cast so that it heals right, and then you won't be in pain anymore. You could, with a broken arm, just like take some painkillers to numb the pain. You could do that and then gaslight yourself into believing that you don't have a broken arm and you're not in pain. But like, what happens in the long term if you do that? You stay in pain for so much longer because your arm didn't heal right. If we think about like how we relate to physical pain and apply it to how we could relate to emotional pain, listen to what that emotional pain is telling you. If you're feeling sad, maybe that pain is telling you that you lost somebody or something that was really important to you and that there's a hole, and it's okay to miss things and people and beings who are important to you. If you're angry, maybe that feeling is telling you that somebody crossed your boundaries or somebody threatened you. Listening for what's under there helps to not be so like intimidated by your own feelings. This is another thing I could make a whole video on. Maybe I will actually, about how like we as a society can't sit with boredom. We can't sit in quiet with ourselves because we're so afraid of ourselves. At least that was true for me. You tell me if that resonates. If you want me to make a video on it, leave a comment and I will. Emotions, simply information. When you can start relating to your emotions as neutral, like your relationship to the emotion is neutral, then you can start to hear what that emotion is telling you and take appropriate action. And then the emotion will leave because it's done its job. If you don't let your emotion do its job at helping to guide your actions, helping to guide, okay? I'm not saying only use emotions to guide your actions, but they should be one data point in how you act in life. Anyway, nuance. The third and final point I'm going to leave with you is you have the same hours in the day as Beyoncé. I cannot tell you how much this little Pinterest motivational quote makes me fucking roll my eyes because no, you don't. No, you don't. You literally don't have the same hours in the day as Beyoncé. Sure, maybe technically everybody is going through a 24-hour day, but do you have a full-time job that takes up 40 hours a week? Oh, well, there's 40 hours less that you have than Beyoncé has because Beyoncé is self-employed and like she doesn't work on a 40-hour week schedule. Do you have kids or aging parents or disabled siblings or friends or neighbors that you care for and are responsible for? Oops, well, there's more time that you don't have that Beyoncé has. Let's say you and Beyoncé line up 1-to-1 on all of these sort of time-based responsibilities. Do you have the same resources as Beyoncé? Do you have the resources to pay for teams of hundreds of people to work below you to carry out booking concert tours and promoting your album? And like, Beyoncé doesn't do all of those things by herself. Beyoncé is not the one who is creating the album art. She isn't the one who's negotiating with like radio stations and Spotify and doing distribution and doing all of the insane logistics that have to happen in order to schedule a tour. She's not the one who is sewing her own costumes. She's not even the only person who's working on her music, okay? She's not producing the music. Look at any music credit and you'll see that there are multitudes of people who are credited on her music. It's her name that's on it, so she gets the credit. But please do not compare yourself to Beyoncé if you do not also have the same amount of resources and manpower that Beyoncé has, okay? It's not a fair comparison. If this has worked on you, this comparison with Beyoncé has worked on you to shame you and guilt you into hustling harder, you may be shocked to know just how many of your favorite artists, celebrities, and athletes are Nepo babies. Even if they don't have a parent or family member who's like in the industry that they're in, they at the very least have had the financial resources to be able to invest their time in practicing their craft or their sport for 8 hours a day for many, many years in order to reach that elite level. It is extremely rare for Olympians to come from not rich families. Because, again, like, think about it. Okay, actually, I'll give you an example from my own life. Back when I was working at a circus school, there were a couple of students who were teens who would train at the gym 8 hours a day. And of course, they were the most skilled, like, circus artists in the building because they had the luxury of being able to train 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, because they were homeschooled. They were homeschooled and their families are rich. Besides the fact that their families had the resources to pull them out of public school and homeschool them, their families also had the resources to pay for them to train 8 hours a day, to do private lessons all day. Like, if they're at the gym and they're training 8 hours a day, well, they're not training in our, like, recreational classes because those happen after school. Well, I mean, they would, but you get me. Like, there aren't a whole lot of other kids in a circus gym from the hours of 10 to 4 because those kids are in school. But these kids were not, because their life path was being the very best circus artists that they could be. And their families had the resources to support that dream. If their families did not have the funds to invest in their circus training and education financially and time wise, they would not be at that level. So I, very early on in my own circus journey, because I came into it as an adult, I had to come up with the mantra of, I will not compare myself to people half my age. I will not compare myself to homeschooled teenagers. I will not compare myself to homeschooled teenagers with rich families. It's not a fair comparison, in the same way that it is not a fair comparison between you and Beyoncé. So stop comparing yourself. So there you go. There's 3 common, like, phrases, tropes, etc., that have popped up a lot in my own self-help, self-development, mental health, spiritual healing journey. Have you come across these phrases? If so, did they damage you as much as they damaged me? If not, what were the thoughts that you had? How did you interpret them differently than I did? I want to know how you're so much more resilient than I am. If this video helped you at all, please like it. Subscribe if you want to. Let me know if any of the things that I have mentioned in this video are worth making into their own video. Tell me in the comments. So, thank you so much for joining me on this fine spring Wednesday, and I will see you on Sunday for my small channel analytics update. See you then. Bye!